So I will begin, as I said, with crimes against animals. What we propose is that certain acts of animal abuse should be reconceptualized as crimes against animality, suicide, etc., core crimes under Article 5 of the Rome Statute of the ICC. And this is why. So the world in which we live today, it is perfectly legal to exploit, abuse, and kill most animals in most parts of the world. But what if we were to do these same things to humans? So what if we were to create human farms where people were bred for consumption or other types of exploitation? What if we were to capture people from their homes, transport them, confine them, force them to do labor? What if we were to engage in these activities? Well, unfortunately, history is full of examples of people having done these things. So people have definitely tried to do horrendous things to other human beings. And let me assure you that in every single place in the world with any respect for human rights or the rules of law or the rule of law, all of this is absolutely illegal. So we are not allowed to treat human beings the way that we treat animals. That is blatantly clear. But in our presentation today, we try to propose that we extend to animals the same basic courtesies and rights and recognition that we extend to human beings. And we ask the question, well, if we can't do it to humans, why can we do it to animals? So even when the mistreatment of human beings, when the violation of their rights were not prohibited by some or the other domestic regime, international law has historically stepped in to fill in the gap that was left by domestic laws. So we have, for instance, international criminal law, which emerged because severe violations of human rights were being committed under various regimes, and international criminal law developed to address these violations. And what it did was it took the most serious crimes that we have witnessed on the planet, and it said, well, you know, this isn't acceptable, doing this to people. It doesn't matter what domestic law says. International criminal law prohibited these activities, criminalized them. It prosecuted the people who engaged in them. And it sent a very strong and very clear message that there are some crimes that are so serious that they are of concern to the global community as a whole, and they will be met with a response from the global community as a whole. So regardless of whether the crimes that were committed were considered as such domestically, international law considers certain things like crimes against humanity and genocide and war crimes to be international crimes. And as such, they are prohibited all over the world, and anyone who does them in any part of the world can face repercussions for their conduct. So some crimes are so serious that they affect the world community as a whole, and they warrant a global response. International crimes in general cover some of the most heinous acts, but only when they're committed against humans. International criminal law as a body, as a corpus of law, has been developed by various ad hoc tribunals, and these crimes are now reflected in the statute of the Permanent International Criminal Court. In our presentation today, we draw on parallels between human and animal suffering to ask, well, why only humans who are protected under the regime of international criminal law? Because yes, a lot of very serious crimes have been perpetrated against human beings, but and still are, but a lot of very serious crimes are being perpetrated. And I use crimes in a loose sense here because most of what we do to animals that would be highly criminal if it were done to humans is actually perfectly legal. But a lot of these acts are committed against animals all over the world. And there's usually no legal repercussions. Either there are no laws prohibiting it, or the laws that prohibits animal exploitation and abuse are not enforced. Or even if they are enforced, the sentences are extremely light. So what that results is we live in this world where everywhere we go, we can see horrendous things being done to animals on scales and with characters that would be considered completely unacceptable if they were being done to humans. So our presentation today is about asking this question: why do we prohibit it for human beings but permit it for animals? And we make proposals to try to address this through international criminal law. So through the body of law that is meant to respond to the most serious crimes that are committed, we try to propose that they respond not only to these serious crimes when committed against human beings, but that they also respond to these crimes when they're committed against non-human animals, sentient animals specifically. So we start with Article 5 of the Rome Statute, which deals with crimes within the jurisdiction of the court. And it says that the jurisdiction of the court shall be limited to the most serious crimes of concern to the international community as a whole. The court has jurisdiction in accordance with the statute with respect to the following crimes: genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, and aggression. The jurisdiction of the court thus encompasses 4 core crimes currently. And what we're proposing is that some more crimes be added to the jurisdiction of the court. And these crimes are crimes that are aimed at animals instead of human beings. So we propose adding crimes like suicide, crimes against animality, and war crimes against animals. So what would this look like? Well, we move on to Article 6 of the Rome Statute, which deals with genocide. Genocide involves an underlying act such as killing, harming, sterilizing, forcibly transferring, etc., with the intent to wholly or partly destroy a group defined by nationality, ethnicity, or religion. But as we're all aware, there are a number of policies that are pursued by states. There are a number of acts that are engaged in by individuals that seek to wipe out animal populations based on species. For instance, you have pest control. You have culling for controlling an animal population that is deemed to have grown too large and too unsustainably large. And you have culling for the purposes of eradicating entire species that are perhaps deemed to be invasive. We propose that these acts should, subject to meeting certain criteria, qualify as suicide, which is attempting to eliminate entire species of animals for these or other reasons. So a lot of the arguments that are put forward is, well, you know, they are pests, they are keeping human beings from growing their crops, or their populations have grown too large and it's destabilizing the ecosystem, or they're an invasive species and they are again destabilizing the ecosystem. And all of these arguments that are raised to justify mass killing of animals, I've always found perplexing, because there has been no species on this planet that has caused as much destruction and devastation as human beings. But we accept that. Not only do we not try to regulate the devastation and destruction that humans cause in any meaningful way, but nobody in their right mind would try to say we need to reduce the human population through culling people, or trying to control the population, trying to undo the damage, or, you know, we wipe out entire ecosystems and it's not even questioned. So when we don't apply those matrices, when we don't apply those standards to human people, why are we applying them to animal persons? Are there no better solutions to be found? Is there no better way? And if we just accept all the destruction and the damage that humans cause, and we cause most of the damage this planet has seen, so if we just accept it, then why are we questioning it so much when it's a non-human who is causing that type of damage? So what I'm proposing here is that we start using the same matrices when we compare humans to non-humans in terms of the impact we have on ecosystems, for example, and proposing that we recognize a crime of suicide, which involves trying to wipe out groups of animals based perhaps on their species, which is currently considered not only perfectly acceptable, but also desirable if the species has, for example, been deemed invasive. So this is just some food for thought. All these acts that humans do that are extremely harmful are just accepted. And when animals inadvertently end up causing any kind of instability in ecosystems, it is seen as something that is so unacceptable. And the difference lies herein because we humans who kind of decide the fate of the world in a way, right? We accept that humans have a right to be here, that our lives have more value than any harm that we can possibly do to the planet and its other inhabitants. And when it comes to animals, we decide that their lives don't actually have any inherent value. So the only thing we look at is this instrumental calculation where we look at an animal and we say, okay, you are causing more damage to the ecosystem. Your life is worth absolutely nothing on its own. So we conclude that they have no right to be here. And that line of thinking is extremely problematic. So putting this out there. And the next article to consider is 7 of the Rome Statute, which deals with crimes against humanity. So there are a number of underlying acts such as murder, extermination, enslavement, deportation, forcible transfer, torture, imprisonment, sexual violence, prosecution, enforced disappearance, apartheid, etc., when committed knowingly as part of a widespread or systematic attack against a civilian population. And our response to this, our answer to this is to develop the notion of crimes against animality. So animal hunting, fishing, and slaughter after agriculture, aquaculture would be akin to the murder of human beings. Animal farming, like agriculture, aquaculture, dairy farming, would be akin to enslavement. And in the dairy industry, we know there is a tremendous amount of sexual violence that forms the bedrock of that industry whenever the practice is naturalized and practiced. There is animal labor, which can be likened to enslavement, to forced labor. There are animal blood sports, which necessarily involve torture and murder of animals. There is vivisection, which involves torture as well, and murder almost always. So we have a number of things that we do to animals currently done in a human context, given that the contextual element requirements of Article 7 here are met. These could qualify as crimes against humanity. When done in the animal context, they are seen as kind of everyday accepted practices that most people don't even bat an eyelid for. So this is the second article in which we wanted to focus to kind of highlight that there are a lot of similarities between what is legally permissibly done to animals and what is absolutely forbidden to be done to humans. And with that, I will hand it over to my colleague Mani.
Hi, nice to meet you, everybody. My name is Vanessa Wong, and I would like to continue the presentation with all of you to discuss whether animals can be qualified. It's more technical. What I'm going to say is qualified as a victim under the rule and procedure of the ICC. That is the next slide is the Route 85A. So as you know that in the International Criminal Court, there are not only like what we've seen usually having the prosecution and defense, we still have the legal representative of victims, in which the RPE, they define what does it mean by victims in the legal sense. And as we can see that on the screen, that victims means, as I highlighted, natural persons, or according to 85B, like the organization or institution that direct harm to any of their property for humanitarian purpose. So, and then turning to the next slide, then we can see that there are 4 criteria for us to recognize as victim according to Rule 85A. So they are first like natural person means like you have to be like human beings. And second, they suffer harm. And third, the crime within the jurisdiction of the court, which my colleague Ankita has briefly introduced to us. Like there are currently four according to Article 5 of the Rome Statute, that is like what we are referring to, the crime within the jurisdiction of the court. And the word jurisdiction in this sense means like the court have the power to hear a case. Means like something that is the subject matter of the court, that, oh, I can hear this. So just in case that, because I know that this is a webinar that maybe people from the law background or non-law background who show like interest or care to animals. So I would like to explain some of the words to you. And finally, we have the what we call causal link between the crime and the harm suffered. Means like we will use the but-for test. For example, does the event happening, the harm happen or suffer, is related to some act that is done by human. So we need to have 4 criteria for animals to recognize as victim, in which we can see that for the first for the first point, for natural person, is already like, it doesn't really make sense to say that like animals belongs to natural persons. But however, we will say that humans used to be animals. Yeah, we will say that humans are part of like animals. But the ICC mainly focus on victims, on humans. And you may have the question like, oh, a lot of people, they are talking about like ecocide, like environment. Environment is not really related to people. No, it's not really a natural person as well. Why is it people are advocating, and in a long with a quite a few years for people advocating like ecocide can be a crime under the International Criminal Court. I have been thinking about this, and I have been asked this question during my studies. People try to juxtapose like environment crimes and also animals crimes. And the answer usually will be, oh, because environment is related to human and they are directly affecting us, while animals, they are another type or another categories. So in this sense, they will say that animals is another category and environment is directly related to us. So this will be problematic, we can say that. And not only me thinking that's problematic, but yeah, Akita and also Sabrina were saying that it's also problematic as well, why animal is not value, and or even their rights is remain not recognized. So not only us, and other scholar has also have different view on animals and ICL, International Criminal Law. So in this presentation, I would like to introduce you some of the articles that I believe that is very inspiring by Dr. Marina, and then another expert from the World Animal Justice, Professor Chow, and also another professor in the Netherlands, like Jeremy. So they focus on the crime against animals from different perspectives. In particular, for Marina, she focused on the animals, like which is similar to what I have been talking about, like animals qualifying as a victim. And she highlighted there are 3 criteria because she linked the 2 of the criteria of crime within jurisdiction of the court with the, it's not the real focus of in her paper. So she has like 3 points saying that, oh, they are not human beings, but actually suffer harm and causality. They satisfy 2 of these criteria. And she also pointed out that animals in the international criminal law, currently they are regarded as mere objects, like in the case of, for example, Lubanga or Kataka, they also regard this animals as property, whether when they are assessing what does it mean by economics harm. So they will say that, oh, how many animals were killed and how many animals, like when calculate of the reparation. So this is the position of animals in the current Rome Statute or international criminal law. And then back to like Professor Chow, she highlighted the problem is the ICC Rome Statute is more like human focus. And we may have like international instrument that safeguard the wildlife animals. There is no international instrument that protect domestic animals or advocated for animals' welfare. So this is the gap that we are facing. And for Professor Jeremy, he highlighted different approaches for whether the ICC can take in the same way, not reconceptualize, but reinterpret or create another Rome Statute as we are proposing today. So, but when I take a look at the word reinterpretation, and it brings us to like, and yeah, the question that I'll list on another slide, the next one, is what we have here is the evolutionary interpretation. So if you are from the common law background, so you will know that in Canada, there is a case highlighted what is meant by the living tree. Yeah, I noticed there is a question that I will address that later. So so what does it mean by living tree interpretation? Means like you are focusing on the purpose of the drafter. So this is similar to international law. We have evolutionary interpretation, and one of them is seeking common intention. So the common intention in the Rome Statute or in the rules and procedure, that highlights that in particular 85, like B, says that direct harm to any of their property. So in that sense means that if you regard animals as property, then it is included. Yeah. But at the same time, what we are advocating is the Rome Statute is silence on animals. Yeah, people talks about involvement under Article 71K, but no one talks about animals in any sense. And there is a problem that we are facing in the international humanitarian law. When it talks about objects or property, we exclude living things, and animals are excluded. However, in the Treaty Function of European Union, Article 13, they can be regarded as a sentient beings. So the things that the problem or the challenges we're facing is not only on the definition, or is not only on the definition of victim, but the classification of animals in the international criminal law. That if you're applying international humanitarian law and international criminal law, so you will see that there will be problems that contradictory to each other when you are defining what is the position of animals. So before we continue with I thank you for the question again. So yeah, we will address that later. I'm so glad that everyone has like different question that makes the seminar more like interactive. So let's take a look at what we are proposing. So we learned from my colleagues Ankita and also myself that I have been going through like different types of problems or challenges in defining or what we are facing. So it is like I would say that it's bluntly or bravely proposed that Well, at this moment, Article 7 bis, which is the crimes against animality, and Article 7 is okay. Article 7 is crimes against humanity. So what is Article 7 bis is a new proposal that is crime against animality. It's focused with the focus on animals. For sure, we have to take care of the other part of the Rome Statute, just like what Ankita has proposed. Like we have to adjust for the Article 5 to add the crime as the within the jurisdiction of the court, and also Article 2 that also the preamble to highlight the seriousness or the severity of what crimes that animals they are like being they are facing, like they are now we are now trying to set the crime. So we're just only focused on Article 7 bis. It doesn't mean that for suicides and other proposed crime are not taken or applicable. We're just trying to, in the interest of time, trying to talk about how we're going to do that if we have. So for Article 7 bis, we'll focus on what we call actus and mens rea. Actus means like the acts you're doing, and mens means like what you are thinking, like what is your intention or knowledge. So this is very technical, but since this is a webinar, I'm going to briefly talk about and briefly going through some of the questions that you may have in mind. For example, in actus reus, so whether this is a wanton act or is it, or how do we define, like how do we define a crime? Is it a single act or we have to be cumulative? As I see my colleagues, one of her articles is about in India that the court ruled that if you cage the bird, it's restricted the freedom of the bird to fly. So is it something like called omission as well? Yeah, it is something, it's omission as well. So you have the duty of care to take care of birds, but if you accidentally or if you do something that seems normal, but actually is not, then will that be amount to any of these acts under the actus rea threshold? And when talking about threshold, we are talking about like what is the gravity of it? Does it has to be widespread, systematic, or severe? And in particular, we have to like clearly define what does it mean by widespread, systematic, which we cannot just say that, oh, 1 or 2, or is it related to the numbers? So it has to be balance of all the threshold. But currently in the Rome Statute Article 7 for the crime against humanity, so widespread and systematic, we do not need to have both widespread and systematic. We just need to have either widespread or systematic. So we need to make sure that all of these 3 thresholds are well defined when we are proposing the Article 7 bis. And then for turning to menswear, so according to the Article 30 of the Rome Statute, that we know that it is the mental elements for people, like the intent, the knowledge commits, when people committing the crime. So is it sufficient just to have knowledge that I know that this is not good for the animals? Is it too general to have knowledge, or does it have to be intentional? So these are the questions we will have when we are drafting or we are proposing the drafting of the Article 7 bis of the Rome Statute. So I hope that everyone in this, even you may not know that how does it work or how does it actually be practical in situation. I hope that to tell everybody that this is not imaginary and this is something happening. That's why Sabrine, Ankita, they have been really like focusing on advocating this matter to the world. And I'm so grateful that I was invited to join the team, to participate in that with my knowledge in international criminal law. So, and now I will turn to our moderator or Sabrine, for question. And yes, let's take a look at the question. I know that there's quite a lot.